You are about to watch a Frontline Fatalities shoutcast, brought to you by the Frontline Network.
Sup to H fans, and welcome to episode 22 of Frontline Fatalities Season 3, brought to you by the Frontline Network, presented by me, FatalSaint, and with me today as co-casters, I have, first off, DanielD. Welcome to the show, DanielD.
Thanks very much. Pleasure to be here.
And also with me today, once again, is Twister. What's up, Twister?
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back. Welcome both of you to the show on TFN for another Company of Heroes 2 cast, a game between both of you, DanielD and Twister, going up against each other, the two teammates playing against each other on Longreskaya. And this is a round 3, game 1, I believe, of
Correct.
the recent tournament that was just held last weekend. And so what did you guys think about going up against each other? DanielD?
Well, I was pretty bummed. My main goal was actually to get past the round of 3. You know, getting into the top 8 would have been exciting. You know, I can say I'm top 10 COH2 player. So I didn't really want to have to face Twister at this round, especially because, in my personal biased opinion, he's probably the best or one of the best guys, and I was not confident in my chances of taking him out. So I was a bit worried about that as well.
So a bit worried about how these games would pan out, actually, and not getting to round 4, for example, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And Twister, what about you?
It felt terrible.
Oh, I gotta wreck my teammate. This is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible because you have to play against your friend, and then it's terrible because when we had our training sessions, we practiced the best strategies that we thought were the most potent, and we practiced at beating them. So we practically knew what each other would do, and so they were really hard-fought games.
Yeah.
We did know what the other person was going to do.
Yeah.
It was stressful.
It was just like the matter of playing a little bit better than the other guy, I
Yeah.
guess, to win, because you knew what most likely would happen during these games. So DanielD, you will be taking on the Axis side of things for this replay, and Twister will be playing Soviets, and we are on Longreskaya, as I said before, and we're at the 5-second mark. Let's unpause this replay in 3, 2, 1, unpause. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You guys with me?
Yep.
All synced up.
All synced up. So, go-to strategies for playing Axis at the southern position on Longreskaya, DanielD?
Well, this actually plays a whole heck of a lot like Vico did, in that it's very easy to move towards a base pin immediately if you get an MG out. I know a lot of people in the current patch think that MGs are underpowered, but on this map, I don't know whether it's balance and I just think differently, or whether it's because it just feels like Vico playing on Longreskaya. But I end up going 3 Grens and then an MG and then maybe a 4th Gren or another MG and trying to take the cutoff.
So you're going for that very classic cutoff move on, Vico Longre, which was the same thing. MGs, usually double MGs on Longres, actually. One of those maps that a lot of players went double MGs in Company of Heroes 1 was Longre. Do you think it's the same in Company of Heroes 2? Double MG build, is that plausible?
Well, I think, especially with the way it is now with URA and Molotovs, and the fact that the build times are identical and the costs are identical between Grens and MGs, that it's actually stronger to just skip the second MG and make it another Gren. Just because you have to end up relocating the MG anyway, and so a main part of what the MG actually does is draws the conscripts in, and they try to throw Molotov, and you just immediately pick up the MG and focus fire the charging conscript. It almost doesn't do suppression as much as it is just something that forces him to react to it. So I don't think the second one does. It just adds extra micro for you, and it's, I think, less difficult for him to deal with.
Okay, Twister, I see you have built a bunch of sandbags at your cutoff, so you're expecting this cutoff move to happen sooner rather than later, I guess.
I mean, we've practiced it dozens of times, and yeah, I knew it would come, and I was just preparing for it.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. So, would you say, sandbags is something that I very rarely see in replays. I feel that the thing could probably be used way more often than it actually is. What do you think about sandbags for the Soviets, Twister?
My main problem with them is that their build time is around 20 seconds, and you never actually have that time just to have your conscript somewhere build sandbags. So that's part of the reason why I only half built it, because I had that point capping, and as soon as it was over, I just moved on. And I'll probably finish it with another conscript.
I see, okay. So basically the main problem with it being build time and cap time, but I guess you could build it on the points that take longer, like the munitions, and if you probably have enough time to fully build it, but I guess what you really want is protection for that cutoff.
Yeah, and you have to build it in a way that it's not usable by the other faction if you're pushed off. That's another problem with building them.
So 4th Gren out for you now, DanielD, and you're going to expand this tier 1 with even more units now. Is, you know, the big tier 1s that, you know, people tend to call it, and I call it as well, everything that's basically above 4 units, it's just kind of like a VCO mentality, I guess. It just goes back to VCO, you know, 4 unit tier 1 was kind of the standard, I guess, for a lot of build orders in Company of Heroes 1, and it kind of moved over to Company of Heroes 2, but I see a lot of these bigger tier 1s. What do you think about that, especially with a lot of Grenadiers?
Well, as you can see, 4 Grens feels like enough to push the cutoff, which is what I'm doing here. I think it did carry over from VCO, and that 4 tier 1 units is enough to hold enough of the map to safely tech to tier 2. But the issue with doing that is that you're relying on your tier 2 doing some damage, and so if you hit a mine with the flamer half track, or if it gets sticky, then suddenly you're behind because you tech to tier 2 without using what, you know, you can use a big tier 1 to take map control instead.
First complete route of basically all German forces going for just that cutoff move. Do you think that was completely unsuccessful, and or was it still an okay engagement for you? You did cause quite a few casualties on the conscripts, but he caused quite a lot of casualties to your grenadiers as well.
Yeah, no, it was not good. And if you were watching my manpower, I floated some manpower. I should have been building that 5th unit. And really, the strategy is to wait for that 5th tier 1 unit, to wait for a 42 at least, and then attack. But we hadn't tried it with an LMG flanking from the north, and so I was hoping that I could surprise him by coming earlier. So that was why I went in earlier. When really the safe way to do that is to wait for the MG in your 5th tier 1 unit.
So what was the go-to build order for you? We've obviously seen quite a lot of Molotovs thrown. You threw 3 of them in quick succession as well, Twister, during that engagement, and you basically took out everything from DanielD and forced him to do a complete retreat of all of his forces. Is this a go-to standard build order for long range for you?
Practically yes, because when that flank comes, if you manage to push it once, you've basically secured your mid game. So I very quickly tech to Molotovs, and I waited for him to completely engage in that fight and try to throw Molotovs not too far apart from each other, so it denies all the territory that where he can put units. So he's forced to take damage or not do damage to me by not shooting.
Yeah, so you're forcing his grenadiers to move out of the way, and in that way, especially the LMG upgrade cannot fire on the move. And you obviously denied quite a lot of the cover there. You actually burnt all of those yellow cover hay bales with those Molotovs. And now you've reinforced your front line with mines as well. Soviet mines, very, you know, I'd say fairly common nowadays. In the early initial retail patches, I very rarely saw Soviet mines, or German mines for that matter. I still don't really see the German minefield that often either. But, you know, mine play has always been a big factor in the VCO and the Company of Heroes 2, the Company of Heroes franchise as a whole. What do you think about the Soviet mines, Twister?
They can be really good, and they can be really underwhelming. Sometimes they'll kill a squad, and sometimes they'll just kill one person and they won't suppress the squad. So I like plant them because it's I don't know, it's a habitude, but I don't really like them, to be honest.
So small engagement at the northern strategic point. A flamer, Pio, and an LMG equipped grenadier forces off a country squad. At the same time in the center, fighting continues and the German forces are routed. You did take a few casualties on your combat engineers there. But this tier 1 from you, DanielD, keeps growing. 4 Grens, an MG, and now a German sniper as well. Especially what I want to know is your feelings on the German sniper.
I really like it. I think it's a fun unit to use. I find, especially compared to VCO, the camouflage mechanic really rewards not just good micro, but intelligent micro, because you have to think about what paths you're going to take from cover to cover, because the German sniper can stay camouflaged out of cover for a short period of time, and so you can sort of run between objects and stay camouflaged that way. But as far as whether it's actually a good idea to make them, I think it's very situational. This map in particular, because there's such an open area right where the sniper now is standing, I think it's very useful, but the issue with it is still that it's very fragile and it's a gigantic investment. So it's kind of like in Vico in that you've got to make it pay, and I think it's possible. I just think that it's the reason you're not seeing it is because it's difficult to do.
Yeah,
he's in danger now.
With the cloak mechanic being what it is in Company of Heroes 2, it's not the same as in Company of Heroes 1, where you can continuously walk anywhere and just keep being cloaked, unless you fire, obviously, with the squad or the sniper itself. So it's a bit more of a high maintenance unit in Company of Heroes 2, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But it can still be very rewarding. I've seen some excellent sniper usage from players like Steven, for example. If you know about Steven, the Australian streamer, he plays quite a lot of Company of Heroes. And did a sniper just get nuked by a mine?
Yeah.
I'm looking for the corpse, but I only say limbs. So I'm not exactly sure if there was a sniper or if it was a grenadier, because the body blew up a little bit, quite a lot actually.
No, I did lose the sniper to the mine, and it was funny. We actually were. This may have been a first in tournament play. We were talking to each other on Skype while we played these games, and the noise I made when the sniper died was something a little bit more animal than human, I think.
Did you know it was the sniper Twister that exploded?
Yeah, I noticed. I think I noticed first, and then he realized that it was also a sniper, not just the Grand Squad.
Not just
it took me a while. It took me a while because I saw the two Grens, and then I hit my sniper hotkey and went, well, where'd he go?
It's no longer there. So bunker going up on the cutoff now, and the T-70 is out from the Soviet player Twister. And your tier 1 was very, very large. It's still fairly huge with 4 grenadiers, but there is no go-to counter, no hard counter to this T-70 right now. How do you deal with a rush to a T-70 from Soviet players, DanielD?
Well, ideally, what you want to do is to go tier 1, tier 3, but I didn't, because I knew he was going to go for the T-70, and even if you do really well, unless you completely push him off the field, there's still like a minute or two before the P4 can come out. And so I prefer to get a pack, just because it's a nice unit to have later, and if you're wrong about their tech and they decide to go SUs instead, then the pack is actually what you want to have on the field to support your tier 3. So again, the pack is my favorite choice, although definitely the P4 and just sort of stalling is a viable choice.
So how do you go about stalling, you know, when the T-70 comes out? Spread your units out basically across the map, or yeah, what do you do specifically?
The trick is to try to keep a Grenadier in range to threaten the Faust without having it die, which is very difficult. And a lot of it is just decision making. Like you can see here, I let him shoot the MG a little bit, and now he's shooting the bunker, and I'm going to attempt to repair it. But mostly the threat of the Faust. That's how you stall. You get in a building with an MG, or sorry, with a Grenadier squad, and then you get out and run towards him and then run away, and just make him stay back, basically. Let him know that if he attempts to move in, that he'll pay for it with the Faust.
Ooh, that was a nasty rifle nade crit on your flamer-equipped combat engineer Twister, and you're still trying to dislodge this bunker, because without this cutoff, all of the right-hand side is capped, but it's not actually connected right now. So I'm guessing your main priority is getting this bunker away, and I've seen you actually also called in a mortar from your tier 2 building. You went tier 2, tier 3, something that is fairly common nowadays compared to how it was before in the initial patches of Company of Heroes 2, where tier 1 and tier 4 was basically the go-to meta. What do you think about the tier 2, tier 3 combination for Soviets, Twister?
I think it's really strong, but not as safe as going tier 1, tier 4. The problem with tier 1, tier 4 is that it cannot be used on every map. This map, for example, it's quite open, and still the SU micro will be very difficult against a standard German tier 3, because these two houses in the middle, P4 can drive around and escape your SU-85 pretty easily, while if you just go tier 3, you can just chase him. And the tier 2, tier 3 composition is just more versatile, And
do you feel it's a safer way to go than the tier 1, tier 4? Is it too much of a gamble nowadays compared to how it was before, where they were always combined with the guard squad, for example?
Nowadays it's safer because you can always get an AT gun out even if you're cut off like I was right now. While if you're going SU-85 and snipers, you have to keep a presence on the field the whole game basically.
So DanielD, what's your thoughts right now? How do you feel that the game's going for you? You're feeling confident after holding that cutoff for quite a long time, but obviously the T-70 is on the field. You didn't manage to kill it. You got some nice hits on it, but it didn't die. You do have the pack on the field, but that's basically the only proper hard counter to this T-70 right now. And with Twister reclaiming his cutoff, he's going to get these resources again. So what are you expecting from your opponent right now?
I'm hoping that he builds a T-34 and not an AT gun because I have tier 3 up and I have the fuel for a P4. I'm just waiting on manpower. But as far as how safe I feel, I mean, I lost an LMG Gren in the middle and I lost a sniper. And also the fact that when we played these practice games, Germans always won in the first 10 minutes. And the fact that we're at 13, almost 14, and I hadn't killed him, I just felt like he would have gotten some confidence from that. But I think there's such a strong timing when the P4 comes out that I'm counting on the P4 coming out and killing the T-70, surprising the T-70 and killing it and retaking the cutoff. So I think I still feel confident at this point.
So you're really counting on that P4 being the strike unit that you need right now to basically just open up the game for you, and you want that P4 to outright win you the game right now?
Yes, because I lost to Gren and it feels like that, it's really important to have vetted infantry, and even though I have 3 Grens, the fact that I lost one in the sniper, I felt behind on the manpower war. And so when I saw this AT gun that's now barraging my Grens in the cutoff, I got a little disappointed because I realized, in fact, I think I wait to build the P4 maybe because I was trying to decide if there was something else I could do to take an advantage. I felt like if you look at the map control, he's got both fuels, and I don't really have as firm a control on the middle munitions as I want, which is really the objective as Germans on this map, is you hold that middle munitions. So at this point, it's sort of tenuous, I think.
So do you think there was some, was there anything that you can look at the replay right now and say that I should have done that differently? This is costing me the game right now. Why did I do this and why didn't I do that? It's always, in hindsight, it's very easy to be clever and smart about stuff, but when you're actually playing the game, it's not that easy because you got to make, split-second decisions sometimes, and sometimes that decision might be wrong.
Yeah, well, I think the obvious answer is minesweepers. I think the fact that so few Soviet players lay mines with any frequency, it is not a habit for me, and you always want that other LMG or to save up for that blitz strafe. But I think it's such a cheap upgrade at 30 munitions, and it would have saved me that sniper. And I think by having the sniper, I would have had a counter to the AT gun, and it would have made my position a lot stronger.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that the sniper against especially Soviet support weapons being 6 men it's just not cutting it for them. But you still say that snipers viable?
Yeah, I mean it's all fine and good to say, well, there's 6 men and so it takes too long to kill them, but what are they going to do about that? They have to counter the sniper because you can't sit there and let the sniper shoot at the AT gun, and assuming that the game is going equal, no one's dominating. You can't counter the sniper in any strong way without getting tier 1. And if you go tier 2, tier 3, your only counter to the sniper is a mortar, which is not guaranteed. And so you're basically forcing your opponent to, micro his mortar more and do something to deal with the sniper. Otherwise, you just bleed manpower, and it's 15 manpower shot, and the sniper shoots pretty frequently.
Yeah, the German sniper has a fairly high rate of fire, actually, compared to the Soviet snipers were, I think, a couple of patches ago, it had some form of a nerf to it. It's not as fast as it used to be, I think, when it comes to reloading their weapons and stuff like that, and the rate of fire on the guns themselves. So the German sniper is fairly rapid in decrewing stuff, I feel as well, but it is very fragile, and as we said before, it is a bit of a higher maintenance unit that it used to be in Company of Heroes 1, where you could keep it hidden, anywhere on the map. If you didn't use it, you didn't snipe with your sniper, it would continuously be cloaked. So Stormtroopers out from you now, Twister as well. You did lose that the T-70. I have to give it to you, DanielD. That was, a really good ambush. You had the pack in position, you had the grenadiers behind it, and it had to go past the grenadiers, get Fausted, get the damage engine, you know, and the pack and the P4 took out the T-70. But now there's a T-34 out and shock troops from Twister combined with this AT gun as well. So your unit composition is looking very good, even though losing that T-70. How do you proceed from here, Twister? Where do you want to apply the pressure right now?
I want to apply pressure on his fuel to deny him building too many tanks. But apart from that, I was just playing. I didn't know what exactly to do apart from camping that middle VP, because I knew that if I lose that one T-34 right now, he could come back in the game stronger than I am right now. So it was a really tense moment.
So the fuel on the left-hand side is capped by DanielD. Grenadier squad retreats afterwards. Is it because you wanted to go back and heal up, or you wanted to combine your forces here now in your base to do some form of an assault on the Soviet stronghold in the center of the map?
It was the healing. I assumed that conscripts would probably come back in some force, and with how low, I mean, if you look at my manpower, I don't even have enough for the second P4. Usually fuel is the issue, but because I've been bleeding so much to the mortar and to my earlier mistakes, I feel like I have to be very careful about keeping my units at full health so I don't pay for it in manpower losses.
So new German sniper out from you, DanielD. Decision, why?
Again, I truly believe, despite some evidence to the contrary, that it's the proper counter to the AT gun. I mean, I could get a mortar, but the mortar, I don't like relying on something that that basically is RNG, right? Like the mortar isn't always going to land, whereas the sniper is always going to hit its shot. And so to me, it feels like that's something that I can guarantee, and so I prefer that.
Oh, it's going to be a ram from the T-34. It gets taken out, but it does finish its ramming on the P4, neutering that main gun. And there are conscripts in the vicinity. There are some LMG-equipped grenadiers from DanielD protecting his medium tank as well. Rifle nades goes in, forces one of the conscript squads to retreat. I've also heard from some players that they tend to get the German sniper when they see guards or shock troops. What do you think about that? Twister,
yeah.
For example. What do you think about your opponent getting snipers when you have invested in this expensive infantry squad?
It's good if you can manage to micro it right, because sometimes I will actually get shock troops to counter a sniper. That can happen. I mean, it goes both ways. If the player is good at controlling his sniper, you should never get him by just mainline infantry. And so in that case, it's really powerful shooting at shock troops, because these guys, I mean, they cost a fortune to reinforce. Every man costs a lot.
They cost half a fortune to call in from the first place as well.
Yeah.
It's a heavy investment, but it is a very powerful shock unit. Hence the name, I guess. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, it does pack quite a punch. And you can't really go near them with their PPSHs. They mince grens, like vetted grens, everything.
Yeah, I think they're a really strong choice, actually. And it's another really, they have a lot of synergy with Tier 2, Tier 3, just because you already have all the AT you need, and the only thing maybe you're lacking is, like Twister was saying, the ability to counter a sniper, and I think also the ability to deal with vetted LMG grens. Conscripts in their current state aren't great at doing that, and so you need either a sniper or you need T-34s, but they can't always be in position, and that's where the shock troops come in.
So you are a bit confined to your German base right now. You're extending over to this left-hand side to recap that fuel point that is continuously being harassed by Twister. We just had a commander choice from you as well now at 5 CPs. Why wait so long to choose a commander?
It's one of those things with the German commanders where frequently there's not, if you're not going to definitely use the blitz trucks, there's just not so many choices that I find appealing in the early game. I mean, things like the mortar half track or assault grens I don't particularly enjoy using, and so there's not a lot of commander abilities. I mean, if you look at what I could have gotten in this doctrine earlier, it's the cargo truck, which is 300 manpower and I didn't have any manpower, and then the field officer, which is no good. And so I waited until I needed the strafe.
Okay, so the choice was to get the strafe to get some leverage on the infantry in the center during this assault with the P4. You do manage to take out the T-34, but you pay the price and lose your P4 as well. And the P4 is a little bit more pricey than the T-34. It's not a massive difference, but they are clearly more expensive.
Well, it's actually a worse decision than it looks like on paper, because that P4 was very close to Vet 2, And one of the big advantages you have with the armor is that, you know, the T-34s end up playing kind of as a disposable unit. You do a lot of ramming, and they're just sort of a little bit squishier even after they're vetted. Whereas like a Vet 2P4 basically becomes unkillable. And
it's a powerhouse,
really.
really.
Keep them alive. Yeah, it's amazing what they can do. I mean, you have Blitz, and with the skirts on it, they're really hard to kill. And so it's a terrible trade what I did there. It was just not. It was not a good decision. I felt kind of desperate to get into the middle just because with the AT gun and the mortar, it's so uncomfortable, my position. Like sitting behind this hedge, you can see like where my 42 is. It has just, I don't know where to put it because it's such an awkward thing to cross the road. And so I was really sort of going all out to try to take a foothold into the middle.
So you're feeling the pressure right now from Twister's play here. You're getting quite a lot of veterancy on your conscripts as well. You got 2 Vet 2 squads, and you know the shock trooper squad is still at large, and one of the T-34 still alive. You get an M5 now to add on to your arsenal as well. Why the M5, Twister?
I knew how Daniel likes to use his strafes, so I just thought I needed to counter it quickly.
So it's for AA basically, anti-air.
It was for AA, and the ability to reinforce is always nice. I mean, in the middle when you're camping like that, if you can stay on the field longer than the German player, it's always good.
Yeah, I think this map in particular, and also maps like Pripyat, Summer, the half tracks are very underused because they prevent things like P-Gren flanks and Grenadier flanks because the AA guns actually do fairly good suppression DPS. And then this game is so much about the VPs more so than it was in VCO. Like the territory is nice, but it's about staying on the field and draining the VPs, and the half track allows you to do that.
These shock troops go up against Vet 2 Grens. They are very damaged health-wise, however, and you're retreating them at 5 men. 4 men, one gets cut down on retreat as well. But you do manage to save most of them, considering they were below 50% health at 6 men there. So, how do you progress from here, Twister? What is your, your magic unit composition? How many T-34s do you want? Do you want a harassing T-70 in the mix? Do you want more AT guns? Or you just want more of everything?
My magic unit composition would be an MG, 3 conscripts, a shock troop squad, 1 single T-34, 1 SU, and an artillery piece. But obviously, you never get that far.
It's very pricey getting all of the buildings and everything.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do here is keep 2 T-34s alive and try to get that howitzer. And so I was trying to save manpower and fight not as often as DanielD wanted to.
Okay. So, DanielD, I see one of the trucks are out on the field as well. Do you feel they're worth their price now, since they were changed before? It was very price-worthy before, extremely, a good financial situation for any German player picking this commander to get, 1 or 2 trucks because they were so cheap. And then they changed it, a little bit how the resource advantage or the resource gain was affecting the unit itself, the truck itself, how many resources it gave out. Since then, I see it way more rarely than I used to. Before it was like, everybody went truck, strafe, and win.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that it's a very situational thing as opposed to before where it was sort of a no-brainer. It still is, if you run the numbers, it's a better deal for your money than an OP would be. So if you want to build an OP and you have the doctrine, it's definitely better to get the truck. But the decision is basically based on, do I have enough fuel for another P4? No. Will another Gren help me? And my answer here was no, and so I decided that what was going to let me take the middle was being able to basically abuse the heck out of the strafe. And so that was the decision to get the truck.
And obviously all of these decisions happens during, in the heat of a game as well. So it's really sometimes... Do you really go through that whole thought process? Do you have time to do that at the same time as you're microing? You have 2 P4s, 3 Grenadiers, 2 Pios, an MG, a pack, everything's going on at the same time. Your opponent is sitting in the center, sitting fairly pretty right now, Twister, with his AA from the quad. He's got his Maxim out, he's got his mortar out, and an AT gun. Very strong fortress from Twister that you have to break now.
Yeah, that's a good question.
How do you process all this information so quickly?
Well, I hesitate to say something like what I'm about to say because then every time I screw up in micro, people will say, "Oh, this guy was full of it when he said that thing on FatalSaint's cast. But this game's not particularly micro-intensive. I mean, I make mistakes like everybody else, but 60 CPM is not really that high. I mean, I used to play StarCraft 2, and I was not great. I think I was like, whatever it was, like Diamond or whatever the top one was before Masters was introduced. And, you know, it was like I had like 120 to 140 APM, and so 60 is half of that. And so I don't have to think too much. Ooh, and that was
Yeah.
That was
my explosion from there. I really wanted to get rid of that AA so that I could use the strafe, even though I don't have the munitions for it now. But to finish answering your question, yeah, that kind of thinking definitely happens. I mean, I said, okay, I don't have enough fuel for a P4. Do I want to buy another sniper? No, I lost 2. Do I need more Grens? Not really worth building them. And so that was why I got the truck.
So DanielD is pushing hard now with his P4s against their T-34s. You do end up ramming one of them and take it out with an AT gun right now, but you feeling the pressure soon already, or you know, is it happening for you now, right, Twister? Sweating?
I was kind of sweating, although things stayed under control as soon as I saw that P4 hit my mine and got a destroyed engine.
Oh, nasty crit.
If it didn't die, I would have been in a tough spot because I had lost all my tanks, and he had a almost vetted P4. But since my T-gun got vet 3 and all his tanks died, I was still in a good position.
So
yeah, I thought I had a 1.
stolen
I
as
thought I had a
well.
1 when I was able to make that push, but when I hit the mine, everything went south.
Just crumbled in front of your eyes with the destroyed engine. Can't believe I got that critical. What just happened to me? Why did I deserve this RNG god? Obviously, you were not praying to the RNG guard hard enough. That's what happened right there.
Well, that's a classic spot for a mine in Vico on this map, and I just I should have drove around it.
Clearly. So conscripts versus grenadiers. Before you talked about no-brainer options, DanielD. Are there any no-brainer options in Competitive Heroes 2 currently, or is it?
I don't know if the meta's that developed where you can say that. I mean, I think people play like there is no-brainer options, but no, I would say no. I mean, who knows? Tier 4 may still be viable. I mean, not for me right now with the fuel I have, but I can imagine how like 1 pack and a Panther and then getting a Panzerwerfer would have helped me a lot here. I think especially the fact that I chose the Tiger Doctrine, maybe doing something like getting an extended tier 2 and going for Panzerwerfers. It's something that Ignat and I always, Twister and I always discuss, but just never feels in the heat of the moment like you can risk going tier 4. But it's not that clear yet. I mean, there's been so few high-level tournament games played that I hesitate to say anything definitive about what's the obvious choice.
Same question to you, Twister. Any no-brainer options when playing the Soviets?
No, definitely not. There's a lot of things you can do, and it's very situational. There's different things that you'll want to have and that you'll want to do depending on if there's an extended tier 1 or a quick tier 2 from the German player. There's no unit such as the Blitz truck like it was before, where you just always get it and it's always good. I don't think there's something like that exists at the moment.
Quite a lot of veteran troops fighting now. You have been able to maintain and keep the 3 remaining grenadiers from your opening alive, and you know, Veterancy is starting to rolling in right now. Any just broad thoughts about Veterancy right now? We did talk about the vehicles, for example, turning into powerhouses as Vet 2. I think a lot of people think the same. I see quite a lot of posts on the forums, for example, also explaining the same thing, that it might be a bit over the top right now. Broad thoughts about Veterancy, DanielD?
Yeah, I would agree that mostly the defensive buffs on most of the units at Vet 2 are overdone, and from that, whether we can believe those patch notes that some people claim are not exactly right or not, I don't know. The changes look like they're addressing that. But I think what it means for the game right now is that it's even more important to keep those units alive, because if your opponent's got Vet 2 conscripts and you don't have vetted grenadiers, then you're in big trouble, and so you're sort of obligated to get that infantry out early and to keep it alive. I mean, we do see a lot of people going 7 or 8 Grens and remaking some of them, but they always manage. The reason people do that, I think, is because you always manage to have a couple of Grens that have Vet 2. And as long as you've got 2 or 3 Grens that have Vet 2, then you're okay. But you have to keep them alive.
Yeah, obviously with Veterancy being quite powerful at times, various Veterancy levels, it does promote unit preservation, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. And the unfortunate side of it is that while it promotes unit preservation, it doesn't. It also makes it much easier. All these units, once you get them to Vet 2, you really have to screw up to get them to die, or have someone use the Soviet strafe on you. So that to me is a little unfortunate, just because it's one of those things where if your opponent is smart enough to be able to just press T at half the squad for the early game, suddenly they're no longer really obligated to pay as much attention.
Yeah, there's obviously two sides to each coin, I guess. It does promote unit preservation in the way that you want to hit that magic Veterancy level, but when you actually hit it, then, you know, unit preservation kind of goes out of the window because, yeah, they're so durable.
Right, I mean, we just saw on the right-hand side a 4-man full health Gren squad. What looked like, it may have been a scatter shot, but it landed in the midst of the squad, and some combination of RNG God and Grenadier Vet 2 armor, they took 0 damage.
Yeah, they just ate the
like
shell.
1%. Looks like they took a little bit, you know. That's one of those things where if a Sherman had hit a Vet 2 Gren squad like that, they would have lost models.
Oh yeah, easily. So, fighting continues. Quite a high, fast-paced game, I have to say. How do you keep up so long, you know, with endurance during tournaments, Twister?
I don't know. Experience, probably. The tournaments in Vico used to be way longer than that. There were times where I had to play for 9 hours straight without actual time to rest. So I think, like, if someone's wondering how they can get better at playing longer games, they just have to play more of those long games and just participate in tournaments. That's how you can manage your stress and fatigue.
Any little tricks you have, DanielD, for tournament endurance?
Yeah, I want to advocate stretching and getting up from your computer and going outside if it's not dangerous where you live, or snowy or whatever it is. I think that for me, a big part of tournament fatigue and video game fatigue is like that you're just sitting in a chair and like probably you're not sitting ergonomically correct, and staring at a screen is bad for your eyes. So yeah, I get up, I do some air squats, and I walk around the block a little bit in between games if I can, and I look at something that's far away that isn't a screen, and that helps me play these long games, because I struggle. I have a hard time sitting in front of the computer for hours and hours and hours, and that helps me a lot.
Very interesting. You kind of remind me a little bit when we interviewed Aimstrong about basically the same thing, and he does a little bit of just physical exercise, between games and before the games and stuff like that.
Wow.
He does for Vico as well. Stretch out a little bit and just leave the computer for a while between games and stuff like that. And just rest your mind as well. He said a lot of the things with his tournament endurance was basically the mind games. Not just the physical parts of your body being tired, but his brain as well. His mind gets tired after a while.
Yeah, I mean, the Koreans, they know competitive RTS, and a lot of those old StarCraft Brood War teams actually in the morning, they all lived in dorms together, all the teams, or the teams would live in individual dorms, and they had exercise programs in the morning because they knew that was a big part of, playing well, was being healthy, and it makes a big difference in how your brain feels and how quick you can be, that you feel good physically when you're playing.
So you heard it here first on TFN. Obviously, there is a physical aspect to playing video games as well. It's not just a little bit of movement on the mouse and a little bit of a few key clicks on your keyboard. Stretch out, and your endurance might increase, I guess.
And drink water as well. That's very important.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
And don't do drugs. Clearly.
Well, it depends on what kind of gaming experience you want to have.
Oh yeah, that's true, I guess. That's true. So, another German sniper out from you, DanielD. 3rd time's the charm?
You know what?
I'm sorry. that was blatantly rude from me, but I just had to. I'm just seeing these German snipers. I love the German snipers, but I'm starting to feel like maybe, when it doesn't work the first time, you die to a mine. That's very unlucky. Second time, you get another one, and you lose it again. Is it really worth it right now?
No, I should have built a mortar. And after I built the third sniper, I was sort of... And the reason I built the mortar is because the only Soviet mortar I really see is the 120. And so I've just got this thing in my head where when there's a Soviet mortar, there's no point in building a German mortar. And I didn't really even... I mean, and I knew that it was an 81 or whatever they are. It wasn't a 120, but I have this, you know, this quirk where I don't want to build a mortar to counter the Soviet mortar, when it's really what I should have done. The sniper was a mistake, there's no question.
So, Twister, during these engagements where DanielD is pushing very hard for the center right now, trying to reclaim the territories and getting that sweet middle VP, what do you prioritize first? You know, vehicle micro, infantry micro, or is it just, you know, a blatant mix of both of them?
Vehicle micro, because if I lose all my T-34s, I lose the game right now. The key to counter P-Force is to not allow them to do what they want, and the T-34 does just that. You have one AT gun in the middle, where Daniel didn't know where it was precisely, and the T-34 were just rolling around, denying movement to that P4. And if I lost it, I would have lost my flanks, so I would have lost my fuel, and he would have built more tanks, and I would have lost the game.
So there's one German strafe on the field and one Soviet strafe on the field. It would be hysterically cool if those two planes collided in the air. I'm not even sure if that's possible. I hope it is, but I've never seen it, I think. Not two planes colliding. I've seen plenty of planes crashing, and it entertains me thoroughly every time I see a plane crash. But I've never seen them collide in the air. What do you think about the Soviets and the German strafes, Twister?
In my opinion, the Soviet strafe is way too powerful at killing the 3 Grand Squads instantly, while the German strafe, that anti-infantry strafe, it comes just way too often and stays on the field too long.
What do you think about the delivery of the off-map abilities on planes in Company of Heroes 2? Because that was basically, apart from airborne and, you know, the Henschel planes from the Panzer Elite, the Luftwaffe doctrine, most of the off-maps in Company of Heroes 1 was just delivered from, you know, thin air, basically.
Yeah, it's really interesting in Company of Heroes. So I was really happy when I saw that basically 1 out of 2 doctrines will have an airstrike of some sort, and that almost any off-map comes from an airplane. It just adds to the immersion of the game.
And obviously then it's also possible to shoot down the planes and stop these abilities, these off-maps from working.
Yes, so there's a whole other aspect of getting anti-air and not building an Austin just to kill infantry, but sometimes you want to build an Austin to deny that airstrike from the Russians.
And same obviously getting the M5 quad for the Soviets to shoot down the German strafes, or the German reconnaissance planes, for example. You can shoot down any plane that loiters on the map, basically. I think the only thing that's technically delivered on the play is the Stuka dive bomb, but there's never actually a plane on the field, so to speak. It's one of those abilities that just turn up from thin air, and then everything around it explodes and dies horribly. So, you're repairing your P4s right now. Magic number of P4s? 2? DanielD?
As many as you can build, really. I mean, it's one of those things where they become... to me, it feels like having 3 is it's not just 50% stronger, it's twice as strong. Just because, you know, AT guns can only have so many targets, and the MGs do a fairly good job against infantry, so you always want to keep building them. I mean, I had games against Holy Hammer in the same tournament where he just built as many as he could, and it's very effective because, I mean, what else? There's nothing else to spend your fuel on. I mean, going to your 4 at that point, like, is so expensive, and you get behind then in the race to see who can have more tanks, and it just, you want to keep up, basically. Well, it's like what Twister was saying. Like, that's how you control your flanks, is with the medium tanks. And the more you have, like, if he has 1 T-34 and you have 2 P-4s, then you can rule the flanks because you send a squad and he sends his T-34 and you can overpower him.
So basically, outnumbering your opponent in sheer numbers, it's, you know, it's obviously a completely and utterly valid tactic. It's how you win, outnumbering your opponents.
Right. It's the key. The key is the fact that it's the mobile medium armor. Like having more mobile medium armor confers this gigantic advantage in mobility.
So Twister, your mortar has been doing very well, I have to say. Vet 2, 10 kills, almost very close now to Vet 3, and it is continuously bombarding the support weapons of DanielD. The pack has been bombarded over and over again. It has been forced back to the German base to reinforce. The same with the German MG. It was decrewed and recrewed by Grenadiers now and forced off by that mortar again. What do you think about indirect fire in Company of Heroes 2?
In that game, I was actually really surprised that that mortar got to Vet 3 twice in the game, if you noticed. Because I usually never build mortars because I just don't like them, and my shock troops usually do the job. While in that game, my shock troops only have 1 kill and are halfway to Vet 2, and my mortars are Vet 3. I don't like building them because they're, like Daniel said, they're too relying on RNG. They don't always hit where you want. But sometimes if you manage to get your mortar to Vet 1, there's that precise track ability that I love to use to decrew weapon teams, and I think that's a big part of how I stayed in that game. Just being able to decrew the MGs and the packs constantly.
So we got one Panzer Grenadier squad going deep into enemy territory here, but they are fairly outgunned or forced to retreat. Trying to decrew that Maxim gun, I guess, was that your priority right now, to be able to get that middle VP and secure it?
Yeah, because if I can have my 42 watching the VP and his Maxim's not watching it, then I can hold it in. With the VPs less than 100, the only thing I'm thinking about is how can I hold this middle VP.
So nice use of the merge ability from your conscripts on your Maxim gun there, an ability that I find highly useful, and I've seen some great usage from it. But in certain replays, in some replays, I never ever see it. Do you think it's a bit of one of the forgotten abilities that the Soviets actually have in their hands? Twister?
Yeah, it's really useful. It actually gives a really big advantage over the Germans. Like in that situation right here, if he was able to reinforce his German MG at the same rate as I was able to reinforce my Maxim just by merging, he would have stayed on the field way longer, and maybe I would never have gotten that VP right now. But since I was able to reinforce on the field and he had to retreat, I just stayed on the field. And again, the most important thing in the game is to stay on the field and conserve your territory, especially when it's a VP at the end of the game.
So do you think in Vico there were strategies, going back to Armstrong once again, he would gladly give up a few territories to keep his manpower. Do you think it's changed with Company of Heroes 2, Twister?
I don't think that manpower is such a big issue as in Vico right now. The main thing that you want is fuel, basically, to again build more tanks and rule the flanks, because usually the fuel and the more important territories are on the flanks, and it allows you to push the opponent off the field by cutting off his reinforcement routes. So if for example he had a P4 standing on the right hand side VP, I wouldn't have really been able to come to the middle VP either, just because he had firepower comes from there. And that's why I think territory is more important than manpower right now.
So German strafe doing its job, keeping the shock troops pinned and damaging some of the infantry units as well from Twister. German strafe plane just keeps loitering the field, continuously dealing damage and suppressing and pinning units. So with that attack, you did manage to decrew the Maxim. It was recrewed once again from Twister. Would you say that is basically your most valuable unit right now to controlling the battlefield, especially this middle VP?
Yeah, I actually lost it once. It got destroyed and I instantly rebuilt it, because that was, I think, the only way I had to control that VP. German infantry is really strong at Vet 3, and I didn't know what to do, what else to do against these guys.
So DanielD down to 72 VPs right now, and Twister is sitting kind of pretty on 314. How do you proceed from here right now? You know, both of your P4s are fairly damaged. You did lose one of the Grens. You know, you don't really have anything, no indirect fire in your arsenal, no mortar, no artillery whatsoever to continuously shell out manpower damage without receiving any. You have to always take these engagements, you know, infantry squad versus infantry squad. You cause casualties and you take casualties yourself. So, you know, how do you proceed from here?
Well, this is the point in the game where I was lamenting my choice to not get Doctrine with the howitzer in it, because that would be ideal. Is to build the howitzer. I think at this point, when you have like the stolen pack and the Maxim and the AT gun sitting there, that's really your best counter. My plan, what I'm doing at this point is I saved up enough fuel to get the Tiger, but in retrospect, like looking at the fact that there's a Vet 3 AT gun and a pack there, it's not really the best choice. I think, like you were talking about before, indirect fire, either teching, I have the feel now that I could have teched a tier 4, or I could have built a mortar, or I could have chosen a better doctrine. I think on this map against tier 2, tier 3, some sort of form of indirect fire would have been the best choice.
So you're aiming to go for the Tiger right now to add on more armored forces to your unit composition right now. You want to use your armor as a, you know, a breakthrough ability to get past this defensive line of Twister right now in the center, as you say, you know, stolen pack, Vet 3 Soviet AT gun. That's fairly respectable, I have to say. It's not easy keeping support weapons alive since that recent patch where they take, what is it, 25% increased damage now, I think. So, all of the German forces now moving out of the German base, P-Force being repaired up. I gotta ask you, something that comes up very often on the official forums and some of the fan site forums as well, is this Vet 1 Blitzkrieg ability on the German vehicles, the German tanks especially. What do you think about that? What do you think about that ability?
Well, if we can believe the patch notes, which I think that was confirmed that they're removing the fact that you can blitz with the damage engine, and then I think it's fine. It's certainly a strong ability, but the reason it's so powerful right now is because it's used offensively to take out, you know, like an SU or a T-34 that's injured, but then it can get stickied and hit a mine and continue to blitz and get away. And if it is changed so that once it gets a damaged engine it can't use that ability, then I think it's pretty balanced. And it's fun. I think it's fun to use. It's hilarious seeing those vehicles just go nuts down the road.
Not exactly sure what happened there, but an Vet 3 Grenadier Squadron and LMG equipped just melted in front of my face. I think the T-34 took out 2 models, and the third remaining model got critted by something. A PPSH equipped conscript squad maybe. They are Vet 3, all of them. Quite a lot of veterancy in these games, and your army is shrinking a little bit right now. So I'm guessing that with 33 VPs remaining right now, is this going to be your final push? And, you know, in a perfect world, how would that attack happen? How do you set this up right now to break Twister's very strong defense in the center?
I mean, ideally, I would do some flanking with one of the P4s, but the issue that I had was my best armor counter was the Vet 3 pack, and I didn't really have enough anti-infantry DPS because I lost the Grens, so I couldn't really protect the pack without leaving the P4 there. So, I mean, the real answer is having more units still alive at this point in the game is the best way to do this push. Because you'd want to come from 2 directions with there being support weapons, AT guns, and Maxims. But my army's not big enough to allow me to divide my forces that much.
Yeah, you have taken quite a lot of casualties, infantry-wise especially, losing all 4 of your initial grenadiers now, all dead. You still retain a Panzer Grenadier squad, but, you know, one squad can only do so much. Twister, what do you think about the Panzer Grenadier versus shock troop dynamic? You know, who has the edge there?
To be honest, I don't really know, because personally I don't like building Panzer Grenadiers. I find them kind of underwhelming at Vet 1 survivability wise. Although they're a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. I don't know. Maybe Daniel can answer that question better.
They definitely die to shock troops, which I think is fair because they're 360 manpower instead of 440, and they're non-doctrinal. I think that shock troops are actually a good counter to Panzer Grenadiers, and especially because it means that your opponent's gone tier 2, and shock troops are good against tier 2 in general. I think it's fun because it all comes down to that grenade toss, and so you've got to like sort of hide that grenade toss behind a tree or throw it somewhere unexpected.
Shock troop grenade versus bundle nade from Panzer Grenadier. It's basically who hits who, I guess, with that grenade. That tips the tide of that battle, that infantry battle. VPs drain out during this German offensive on the Soviet front line in the center of Longriskaya. Well fought by both players. Very high-paced, fast-paced game, I have to say.
Yeah, I think I made a pretty big mistake in that in the early game, like continuing to engage him on the left while slowly pushing in the middle, and then the fact that I was constantly pushing when what I really needed to do was sort of be patient and figure out how to destroy the support weapons and then move in all at once. Instead, I was just like slowly, like there was this constant battle going on, but he was, I think, winning the manpower war in that battle, and so I was sort of bleeding to him the whole time.
Yeah, and you know, I saw quite a lot of the streams for this tournament, and specifically, I saw quite a lot of players. You know, they had 2 VPs against the 1 VP, but they want to close out the game as fast as possible, and they just throw their stuff in there, and something bad happens. You know, RNG God starts laughing, and then you lose your stuff, and all of a sudden you lose your front line, and you lose your little defensive fortress with your support weapons or your vehicle supported by infantry, for example, when you throw away your P4s or throw away your T-34s or Su-85s, whatever. How are you able to keep your cool? You know, you had the upper hand from the mid game until the late game. Obviously it went a little bit back and forth, but generally you had the map control, especially in the center, Twister. How do you keep your cool? How do you just, you know, wait out the attack here instead of just, don't you ever feel that you just want to finish this game right now and, you know, do that last killing attack on your opponent?
I really wanted to finish that game. I think at the end of that game I was cursing in my head. I just wanted to tell bad things to Daniel because it was really it was really hard for me. But I think the best way to not overcommit is to get punished by it often enough. I mean, in our practice games, if I ever do this to Daniel, he punishes me for it every time. And so I knew that if I do this, it won't work. It's no use doing that. And that's how you prevent this from happening.
So you basically learn from your mistakes. Quite simple, actually.
Yeah, not that hard. Everyone can do that.
Yeah, everyone can definitely do that, but obviously it requires practice. So as we said previously in the cast as well, just play more games. You know, you'll get the endurance needed to play in tournaments and be able to compete for, you know, the top places in tournaments as well. Just play more games. Getting a practice buddy obviously has to be quite a good idea as well. I guess it can be hard to you know, find someone around the same level as you. You don't want to just continuously get stomped into the ground over and over again. You know, you don't really learn much from that, I guess. You know, compared to if you play against an opponent of this, you know, roughly the same level as you when it comes to gameplay.
Yeah, you just have to have the mindset of trying to progress in your abilities, and if the other person that you're playing with wants to make progress as well, you'll just play better. Both of you will play better with time. You don't have to find someone that's really good or bad. As long as it's a person that is with the same skill level, you'll both make progress. As long as you play and you're not in the mindset of if I lose, it's the RNG gods that don't like me, or it's just based on luck. If you lose, it's your mistake. Take it on and make your conclusions, play better. So,
final question to you, DanielD. How many hours would you say that you practice with Twister before the tournament? Because I've seen him online, you know, every evening playing Competitive Heroes 2, and I talked a little bit with him, and I was like, I'm practicing with DanielD, playing again.
I don't want to answer because I didn't win, so clearly.
Not enough?
So it was all for naught. Let me think about this. We probably practiced, do we play for 2 weeks?
I think 2 weeks at least.
And, God, I don't want to answer this. And probably about, I'd say, 4 to 6 hours a day. Wow, we really did, huh? There's a lot of talking in between. We would spend sometimes 15 or 20 minutes like sitting down and saying, okay, how did we do the, you know, what could we do differently? And a lot of the games were 5 minutes. Like on this map in particular, where we would play an opening and someone would go all in on a strategy. We said, oh, that didn't work. Let's run it again. So tons of games, and yeah, I'd say average 5 hours a day for 2 weeks.
A lot of time.
All the time, and it's painful sometimes too.
I don't like playing that much video games. I mean, there's many times where I say, no, can we just play 2v2? I don't want to play anymore.
Very nice to have both of you on the show. Excellent commentary, I have to say. Viewers, drop a comment down below the video. Tell us what you think about Twister. Second time on the show now, Twister. You know, very enjoyable. And first time for you, DanielD. Extremely enjoyable, I have to say. I really enjoy talking to you guys. It just feels like I don't know, three buddies having a laugh or something while watching a video game.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Very entertaining. So drop a comment what you think about the commentaries. Maybe we'll get you guys back onto the show. Maybe with Tommy as well. We can do some more triple casts or quadruple casts. That'll be the first. That sounds like a nightmare, but whatever. We'll run it. We'll run whatever. If the viewers want it, yeah, we could run that probably. So I would like to thank you guys for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that juicy subscribe button. We need more subscribers. Grow the scene, and also check out TFN's Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/the Frontline Network, and especially if you scroll down on that page, there's a massive write-up about community links, all of the fan sites and other streamers, so go check those guys out as well and give them your support by following their channels as well on twitch.tv/the Frontline Network. We need to grow the scene, grow the community, so tell all your friends, and don't forget to like the video as well and drop a comment below. So we'll see you guys for the next episode. Thanks guys.
Thank you.
See ya.